Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. Have you ever imagined that the life you built with care could unravel completely? That's where my story begins, my friend. But before I dive into the madness, please like and subscribe to hear more about how I survived living with my husband's psychotic twin sister. What I'm about to share may sound unbelievable, but I promise, every word is true. 6 months ago, my life was perfect. I had a successful interior design studio, a gorgeous home, and a loving husband, Mark. We met when I redesigned the showroom for his luxury car dealership. Unlike other wealthy clients, Mark was humble, kind, and genuinely fascinated by my creative vision. After a whirlwind romance, we tied the knot in an intimate ceremony. Life felt like a dream until she arrived. "Your sister's here," Mark announced one rainy evening. I looked up from my design sketches to see Samantha, his twin sister, standing in the doorway with 3 massive suitcases. I lost my job. "I can't be alone right now," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The depression. "It's getting worse." How could we say no? Mark immediately offered her our guest room. That first night, I heard her wandering the halls at 3 a.m., stopping just outside our bedroom door. At first, her presence seemed harmless, but soon strange things began happening. "I come home to find the furniture rearranged. Mark likes the sofa facing east," she said with an unsettling smile. "We always had it this way growing up." My assistant Emily was the first to voice concern. "The way she stares at him during client meetings, it's not normal," she whispered. Even Mark's secretary, Patricia, pulled me aside. "Be careful," she warned. "Samantha's different when you're not around." It all escalated quickly. My design books disappeared. Family photos were replaced with childhood pictures of the twins. "Your taste is so nouveau," Samantha scoffed over dinner. "Mark deserves better." Mark just laughed it off. "She's protective," he said. "Twins are like that." The breaking point came on our wedding anniversary. I spent hours preparing Mark's favorite meal, only for Samantha to interrupt. "Remember when I used to make this for you? Before she came along?" She smiled sweetly. "It was just us. We didn't need anyone else." Later that evening, Mark canceled our anniversary trip. "Samantha needs us right now," he said, as I watched her reflection in the window, smiling. That night, I found her in my closet wearing my wedding veil. "He only married you because I wasn't there to stop it," she whispered. "But I'm here now." Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But how could I have known letting her into our home would start my worst nightmare? Soon, Samantha's manipulation turned financial. She showed Mark our credit card statement, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Do you know how much she spent on throw pillows last month?" "It's for a new client's lake house staging," I explained, but Samantha cut me off. $3,000, Mark. She's bleeding you dry." That night, Mark revoked my business credit card. "Just until we sort the expenses," he said, but I knew this was Samantha's doing. The next day, a woman appeared at my studio. "I'm Margaret, Mark's ex-wife. We need to talk." Over coffee, she revealed a chilling truth. Samantha had destroyed their marriage too. She'd stand outside our bedroom at night, watching us sleep. Margaret said, "When I told Mark, he said I was paranoid." Margaret showed me photos of her old home. The decorations were eerily identical to what Samantha had done in ours, same poses, same angles. Everything came to a head during Sunday dinner. Samantha burst into tears. "She's stealing everything, Mark. Our recipes, our traditions, our bond." She clung to him dramatically. "I can't sleep in that guest room anymore. The anxiety." Samantha suggested I sleep in the kitchen's daybed. "Just for a few nights," Mark said. That night, as I shivered under thin blankets, I heard them upstairs, laughing like teenagers. "Rachel, Mark's former fiancée, found me the next day. She'll start wearing his clothes next," she warned. I thought she was exaggerating, until I came home early to find Samantha in Mark's office, wearing his Letterman jacket. "We were supposed to be together forever," she whispered, her back to me. "No one loves him like I do." Then came the final straw. Late one night, unable to bear the cold kitchen, I crept upstairs for another blanket. I noticed a light on in my walk-in closet. Samantha stood there, wearing my wedding dress, the veil covering her face. "Do you think he'll notice if I take your place?" she asked, lifting the veil to reveal her wild, unhinged smile. "After all," she said, "we already share the same face." I backed away, my heart pounding. This wasn't just jealousy or possessiveness. It was something far darker. Samantha wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She was a danger, and I was trapped in the middle of her spiraling obsession. The next day, Emily burst into my office, looking worried. Mrs. Carter canceled her contract. That's the third client this week, she said, placing another cancellation notice on my desk. I didn't need to ask why. Samantha had been calling my clients, spinning tales about how I was a gold digger who married Mark for his dealership money. But that was just the beginning. You need to see this, Patricia whispered during a secret lunch meeting. She handed me a folder. Inside were denied partnership contracts and failed business deals, all from the periods when Samantha had lived with Mark. She convinced him to back out of a multi-million-dollar expansion, Patricia said. Said it was too risky. Emily had also been documenting Samantha's behavior in chilling detail. Security cameras caught her following Mark to meetings, watching him from her car for hours. She even called the bank, pretending to be me, trying to access our accounts. Margaret took it further, organizing a meeting at her house. A support group of sorts. 5 women were there, all connected to Mark's past, their lives in ruins because of Samantha. She made Mark fire my entire design team when we were engaged, Rachel revealed. Said they were trying to seduce him. I found her sleeping in our bed whenever I worked late, Margaret added, wearing my nightgown. Then Patricia uncovered something shocking. During her research, she found Samantha's old medical records. She was institutionalized at 16, Patricia whispered, diagnosed with erotomania and an obsessive fixation on Mark. Their parents covered it up. But nothing prepared me for the shrine. While Samantha was at therapy, I discovered a hidden room in the basement. The walls were plastered with photos of Mark at every stage of his life. Business cards, coffee cups, scraps of old clothing, even bandages stained with his blood from childhood injuries. In the center of the room was a replica of their childhood bedroom, recreated in perfect detail. What horrified me most were the newer photos, hundreds of them. Samantha had been watching us, capturing Mark at work, at lunch, even in our bedroom. In many of the pictures, she pasted her face over mine. The final straw came during an important client call. Mr. West, you just called an hour ago to cancel the project. The client said, sounding confused. You said your wife was mentally unstable and that I should avoid working with her. My blood ran cold. Samantha wasn't just impersonating me, she was becoming Mark. That night, I overheard her in Mark's office, speaking into the phone. Her voice mimicked his perfectly. The merger papers are ready, she said. Transfer everything to the secondary account. My wife doesn't need to know. I recorded everything, my hands trembling. With Emily and Patricia's help, we traced the account. It was in Samantha's name. She wasn't just sabotaging my career, she was systematically dismantling our lives. She's made him dependent on her, Margaret warned at our next meeting, just like she did with all of us. The other women nodded in agreement. One had lost her business, another her reputation, all because they had gotten too close to Mark. Later that night, I found a photo album on my desk. Inside were pictures of Mark's exes, all involved in suspicious accidents or unexplained incidents. The last page held a recent photo of me, crossing the street, taken from someone's car. Scrawled across it in Samantha's handwriting were the words, "Twins belong together forever." I locked my office door, my hands trembling, and called Emily. We have to move fast, I whispered. Samantha wasn't just trying to separate us anymore. She wanted me gone. I stood at the podium, presenting my designs for actress Morgan Blake's new coastal mansion. The room buzzed with anticipation, packed with media, industry leaders, and potential clients. This was my moment, a chance to rebuild everything Samantha had tried to destroy. These color palettes represent the merging of coastal serenity with modern luxury, I began confidently. Liar. The word rang out like a gunshot. The doors burst open, and Samantha strode in, wearing a suit identical to Mark's. Gasps rippled through the room as she stormed toward the stage, her heels clicking with ominous precision. She's trying to steal my soulmate, Samantha shouted, her voice high and unhinged. Mark and I are meant to be together. We shared a womb. The room fell silent. Morgan Blake's jaw dropped, and I froze, clutching the edge of the podium. Tell them, Mark, Samantha shrieked, scanning the crowd wildly. Tell them how we're two halves of one soul. Her voice cracked with desperation, and for a moment, All I could hear was my pounding heartbeat. Then, Margaret stood up. "No," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've heard enough." Rachel rose next, then another woman, and another. One by one, Samantha's past victims stood, their faces filled with anger and resolve. "She tried to poison my coffee," Margaret announced, her voice trembling but determined. "She staged a break-in at my office," Rachel added. More stories poured out, years of manipulation, sabotage, and obsession laid bare before Mark's business partners and the press. Samantha's eyes darted frantically between the women, her composure unraveling. "You'll never separate us," she screamed, lunging at me with fingers curved like claws. Security rushed in, grabbing her before she could reach me. As they dragged her away, she locked eyes with Mark. "If I can't have you, no one will," she hissed. "We'll die together, just like we were born together." Something shifted in Mark's expression at that moment. The spell Samantha had cast over him shattered. Later that night, Samantha's childhood therapist called. "She's had this fixation since they were 12, the therapist explained. "She pretend to be Mark, date his girlfriends, then destroy their lives. Your case triggered her worst episode yet." The police found Samantha in our bedroom that night. She had recreated their birth scene with dolls, surrounded by lit candles and empty pill bottles. Her suicide note read, "Twins entered the world together. They should leave it together, too." She was taken away in handcuffs, screaming about eternal twin bonds. Mark lost everything. His business partners pulled out, citing poor judgment and enabling dangerous behavior. He sent me letters, begging for forgiveness. "I was blind," one read. "She was my twin, my other half. I couldn't see the monster she'd become." But I never responded. Instead, I poured myself into my work. Within a year, my design firm expanded to 3 cities. Magazine covers called me the Phoenix designer, risen from the ashes of tragedy. Today, as I cut the ribbon on my new design center, the crowd cheers. This is my story, a story of survival, rebuilding, and triumph over darkness. Emily nudges me. "Look," she whispers, pointing across the street. A police car is parked there. Samantha sits in the back, on her way back to the institution after another failed competency hearing. She's still wearing clothes identical to Mark's, her lips moving silently. Our eyes meet through the window, and she presses her hand against the glass. I can't hear her, but I don't need to. I know she's still living in her twisted fantasy. This morning, Mark sent roses with a note. "I miss us. Please come home." I dropped them in the trash. Some bonds, once broken, should stay that way. Some homes, once poisoned, can never be lived in again. The ribbon falls, cameras flash, and I smile, knowing I'm finally free of the twin who tried to erase me. They say twins share everything. But some things, sanity, love, and freedom, are meant to be individual. I learned that the hard way. What would you do if you discovered your spouse's twin was recreating your wedding photos and wearing your clothes? Would you confront them immediately, gather evidence, or run for your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below.